Monday edition of the show, all across America on SportsMap Radio. All over the world on the SportsMap Radio app. Thank you for being a part of it. Alongside producer engineer Justin Barbosa, I am the Jason Page. We got a busy 3 hours ahead. It's always a busy 3 hours this time of night. Even on a night where there is no more NBA, no more NHL, in terms of games, of course, and even a light night in baseball, we will still entertain and dazzle you for the next 3 hours on the show. I'm going to do something tonight I never do. I'm actually going to give the phone number out at the start of the show, both the phone and text line, because I always forget. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004 is the phone number. The text line, 888-670-8549 from anywhere in America, anywhere at all, 888-670-8549. Hit us up at any point during the show tonight if you feel so inclined. Did you watch the U.S. Open? I did. We'll get into that tonight. Jason Sobel will be our guest from PGA Tour Radio on Sirius XM. We'll get some thoughts with him on the win for Wyndham Clark. Primetime U.S. Open coverage averaged a 1.3 rating, 2.26 million viewers on Thursday night. How did it do on... how did it do later on in the event? Because I mean that's not terrible. If you look at the for the start of the tournament, that's not terrible. The final round, well, we'll get into it a little later in the show, so stick around for that. Jason Sobel will join us. We'll get into it with him on this win for Wyndham Clark. Rory McIlroy coming up just short. And, you know, it really is the truest thing that ever since I started playing golf when I was 9 years old with Ricky Esposito and William Hubbard. It's a true story. I was a little kid, and my childhood best friend was this kid, Ricky Esposito. He now goes by Rich Esposito. And his grandfather was the chief of police in the town I grew up in East Haven, Connecticut, William Hubbard. And William Hubbard, me, and Ricky Esposito, my childhood best friend, I'll never forget. The first time we ever went golfing, it was at this course in Hamden, Connecticut called Sleeping Giant Golf Course. Little 9-hole course. And I took my clubs, and I'm carrying my clubs around, and we get to the green, and I put my clubs down on the green, the bag with the clubs in it, and his grandfather goes, "No, don't do that. You can't do that. Can't bring your clubs down onto the, you can't put your clubs down on the green. What are you doing?" It's the first time I ever played golf. But one of the oldest sayings in golf, ever since I can remember playing, you know, I'd hit the ball, and it'd go a long way, and I'd get excited, and you'd always hear it. Drive for show, putt for dough. And it's very simple. You could hit the ball as far as you want. You can, unless you're Happy Gilmore, which doesn't happen in real life, and you can drive every single green with your driver, you have got to be able to putt the golf ball. You've got to be able to hit the ball with your putter. You have to have some accuracy and the ability to make putts. And the PGA Tour, there is no greater testament to this than life on the PGA Tour. The ability to make putts when it matters. Rory McIlroy, tee to green, and those are very important words. Tee to green, Rory McIlroy was as good as you could be. He was as good as you can be in this tournament. But that is tee to green, not on green. Doesn't count what you're doing once you get on the green. And Rory simply could not make putts. How many times did you see him miss inside of 12 feet, 13 feet, 14 feet? The putts you have to make to win majors. He simply could not make them. And I almost fell out of my chair last night when Andy North got on ESPN. Bless his heart. Andy North, former U.S. Open champion. I love him to death. But my God, what tournament were you watching, Andy? To sit there and say that Rory was simply putting himself too far away from the hole, that he didn't hit enough shots close in enough. He couldn't make any putts. He had more than enough opportunities. What were you watching? If he just makes one or two, and on Saturday and Sunday it was the same story, he simply could not make putts. And Wyndham Clark played about as good as you can play under the circumstances. A lot of times guys have to learn how to win. Now, I'm not talking about winning the Wells Fargo Championship, which, great, it's an elevated event. That's wonderful. But guys have to learn how to win. This happens all the time. Guys have to come up short, feel the sting of disappointment in a major. And then the next time around, a year or two later, they wind up winning that elusive major. That's what happens to great golfers all the time. Rory is a perfect example of that. Lost a heartbreaker at the Masters and then wound up winning a U.S. Open a couple of months later. Had heartbreak. Had a lead with 9 holes to go at the Masters. Fell apart. Couldn't finish the deal. So, in essence, what Wyndham Clark did yesterday is that much more amazing because he did it without having to go through the stinging loss, the stinging defeat of having lost a major. He was able to sort of skip that step on the ladder of success in majors. And he's damn good enough to win again. Now, while I say that, I also realize the history of golf is littered with guys who won one and then never won again. Sean McKeel won a PGA championship. Lucas Glover won a U.S. Open. I mean, there is a dustbin full of guys who won one by some miracle and then never won another. And Wyndham Clark could certainly be that because there are a lot of great golfers that are always in contention at these majors. Scotty Scheffler, Brooks Koepka, despite the fact that he didn't like this course. Rory's going to win again. I know it's been 9 years, and this one hurts, but Rory McIlroy is going to win again. I can promise you. It's not one of those things where, this is a guy who's won 4 and he's never going to win a 5th. Rory McIlroy will inevitably win again. But it's not easy. And not to bring it all back to Tiger, who couldn't be further from anybody's minds in this event as we watched on Sunday. But it only drives home the point more of just how amazing it was that Tiger Woods did what he did for as long as he did it. Playing in an era with a lot of great golfers, a lot of us accomplished golfers. You wonder how many guys in Tiger's era would have won majors if Tiger hadn't been around. If not for Tiger Woods just being as special a talent as he was and gobbling up and swallowing so many of those major championships up. It's hard, man. The one thing I was talking about this yesterday, watching it with my husband. I said, there's something about golfers. We talk about mental toughness in sports. I'm going to carry this over to the other side. And if you watch the U.S. Open, I'm curious to get your thoughts on what we witnessed on Sunday. Feel free. Let me know. 800-224-2004. 800-224-2004. Hit up on the text line. Get me there. 888-670-8549. 888-670-8549. For those wondering, when am I going to talk about the basketball and the big trade and the big NBA news of the day? We'll do that to start the next hour of the show. With Jason Sobel coming on this hour, I figured it was good just to get the golf stuff in here to start the show. But I want to get some thoughts if you watched it. Mental toughness is something we talk about an awful lot in sports. And as much as we think tough and all that, you never really think of golf. Guys with caddies carrying their clubs around, walking around a course at sort of a leisurely pace. Takes 5 hours to play a 18-hole round that should take 3.5 hours, but that's another topic for another time. But I noticed something yesterday. We talk about mental toughness in sports all the time. And I want to get to that coming back on the other side. One 800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Hit us up on the text line, 888-670-8549. We're just getting started. I'm Jason Page. Good to have you with us tonight. Monday edition of the Cash In. It's SportsMap Radio. Wow, Hershey's up 1-0 already. First minute, 2 minutes of the game, they already scored. Rolling along on this Friday edition of the show. Good to have you with us tonight. So 14 of Rory McIlroy's 18 birdie looks in the final round. Mind you, he hit every green in regulation. 14 of his 18 birdie looks were 18 feet or more. That still means 4 of his birdie looks were inside that distance. Again, you got to make something. You got to make one. And even Rory, I mean, look, Rory said it. He also said that he'd kill to have that opportunity and, be in that position again. And he will. Hoy Lake is just around the corner, and we'll see him at the Open Championship. So, be interesting to see how he fares there. Place that he has obviously had some success in. All right. Something I want to get into before we have Jason Sobel on joining us in the next segment from Action Network and SiriusXM PGA Tour Radio. Something else I want to get into. The mental toughness, the mental that grit factor that we often associate with sports like football and the NFL and quarterback play. And I'm talking mental toughness, not physical toughness, because obviously, for the most part, golf is not a physically grueling sport. You got to be in some level of shape to be able to walk around the course, but there are all kinds of shapes that play the game. Let's be honest about it. But having watched yesterday, one of the things that stuck out to me that I wanted to get into was the mental toughness that was on display, not just from Wyndham Clark in winning this tournament, but from a lot of these guys as I get comfortable in my host chair. It's the toughness on display from a lot of these guys. I was blown away. And I don't know why it took watching yesterday. I mean, I've watched a million golf events, some in person, some on television. And I don't know why it took me to yesterday to see this. But more than in any other sport, because in golf, you've got time to think in between shots. Mental toughness in football, it's play, next play, next play, next play, next play. In basketball, it's constant, up and down the floor. You don't have time to think. In the NFL, if you think, you're dead. NHL, bang, bang, up and down the field. Baseball, you have a little more time to think in between plays. Even with them having sped up the game, there is still a pace of play that gives you time to think in between plays. Guys have time to take a card out of their back pocket in the outfield, find out where they should be positioned, that sort of thing. Pitching changes and the like. But no more than golf do you have oodles and oodles of time to think. And you've just hit a bad shot. You've hit it into one of the bunkers. You've hit it into one of the sand traps. And you've got to walk all the way down to that shot and think about your next shot and then execute. But it's so important. Shot to shot to shot. It's so important to be able to put the last one out of your mind. And anybody who's an amateur golfer, who's a Sunday hacker, even goes out there maybe twice a week, has to appreciate what it takes for a golfer at the highest level, playing for millions of dollars, the prestige of being a major champion, the ability to go out on the course, hit a terrible shot, and then get up and take that terrible shot you've just hit and find a way to channel the energy and maintain your focus and concentration and hit some of the shots that these guys hit after hitting a bad shot, making a putt, whatever it may be. It is mind-blowing. And the U.S. Open is the greatest grind of all. It is the toughest test in golf. And by the way, might I say, pat on the back for me. Friday night, I think it was 10 under or 11 under was leading the tournament. And I said at that point, 10 under is going to win this tournament. Because you could see the course getting harder. And while there were exceptions to it, and there was a good score here and there, even on Sunday, Tommy Fleetwood shooting a 63. Cam Smith shooting a decent round. There were no low scores to be had on Saturday and Sunday on that course. It did bite back. This idea that LA Country Club was, wasn't tough enough. The fairways were too wide. By the time that thing ended Sunday, it was a battle of attrition. Somebody was going to have to make a putt or somebody was going to have to make a mistake. But everybody just came in sort of level at the end. If you look at the top 3 or 4 golfers, they were all in the same spot that they were when the day started. But just the resiliency of these guys. And again, I know we don't equate toughness with golf. But that is a battle for 18 holes on Sunday and Saturday before it. Shot after shot after shot. I give a lot of credit to those guys. They really put on a great show. And it wasn't some birdie making fest down the stretch. And I know that would have been fun to see, and it would have been nice to see Ricky Fowler when he came unglued in the final round. Xander Schauffele came unglued in the final round as well. And I get it. We would have liked to have seen Fowler or McIlroy win. That would have been the story that gave us the most appeal coming into this show on a Monday night. But you just see how difficult it is to win. And again, it's easy to sit here and go after guys and talk about the fact that Rory didn't make putts or Fowler choked it up with another opportunity at finally winning his first major. I'm not going to give you any of that. That course is so demanding. That course is so tough. I'm not going to give you any of that. Those guys played 72 holes on one of the tougher tracks in this country. And Wyndham Clark was just a little better after 72 holes. If it's 3 or 4 more holes, he was leaking oil at the end. He had 2 bogeys on 15 and 16. I mean, he was leaking oil at the end. There's no getting around it. But at the end of the day, he figured out a way to save his best drive, make a par on 18, and it was a no-stress par. 60-foot lag putt to within a foot, and taps it in for the win. And one of the golfers that was supposed to be good 6 or 7 years ago has his first major. All right, Jason Sobel will join us coming up on the other side. Get some thoughts with him on this U.S. Open and a couple other notes from golf that have come in since that Open ended and have been surrounding this U.S. Open. Jason Sobel, who's done a great job on golf forever. He was with ESPN. He was with the Golf Channel, now at the Action Network and PGA Tour Radio on Sirius XM Radio. We'll get some thoughts with him on what we witnessed yesterday. Your texts at 888-670-8549, 888-670-8549. You can also tweet the show. I am on Twitter, at The Back Page. If you're not following me there, make sure you do. On Twitter, at The Back Page. We're always checking out the tweets as we go through the show as well. I'm fully engrossed tonight. For anybody who's watching the video feed, you will notice my eyes shifting off camera. I'm not looking at the camera much tonight. There is an AHL Calder Cup final game, and I live in Palm Springs, California, as many of you know. And in their first season in the AHL, the Seattle Kraken's AHL affiliate, the Coachella Valley Firebirds, are down 3-2 in the Calder Cup final, which is the AHL, as I said. And in Game 6 tonight of that Calder Cup final against the Hershey Bears, Coachella Valley has just tied the game up at 1. It's win or go home for Coachella Valley here in this final. We'll come back with Jason Sobel on the other side. SportsMap Radio. Oh, they start again! Let's go!
Yeah, just a great job on that play. The forecheck. That's the key to that play is to keep the pressure on.
Oh, that's awesome.
Battle. John Hayden does a great job of camping himself out in front of the net where he gets the whack at the rebound and buries it. You talked about shot first mentality. Get it? Doing that.
Wow. Works better when I turn on my Bluetooth here. Mr. Sobel!
What's up, dude?
What's going on, brother?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm literally, this is going to sound like the dumbest thing in the world. I'm watching the Calder Cup final in the AHL because the team from Palm Springs, which is the Kraken's AHL affiliate, it's their first year in the league. It's the first year they've had AHL hockey. They just built a brand new arena out here, 11,000 seat arena. It's sold out every night. It's one of the best success stories in all of sports this year. Is this town that doesn't even have a hockey rink in it? There's no hockey out here, and they decided to put a hockey rink. They decided to put a hockey team here because the CEO of the Seattle Kraken has a home out here and said, "Hey, let's put a hockey team in the middle of the desert." And they're in Game 6 tonight, and Coachella Valley's winning 2-1, but they're down 3-2 in the series. So, and it's on TV. Like, that's how big it is out here. They actually put the games on TV. It's wild. So, I was so enamored with that final round yesterday. I'm looking forward to talking to you about it here. Here we go.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Good to have you with us tonight. SportsMap Radio, the SportsMap Radio app, all of our video feeds, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, you name it. Let's not waste any time. Let's get into it with Jason Sobel. PGA Tour, Sirius XM Radio, Action Network too, right? You're still Action Network, right?
Of course.
I'm just making sure. I got to keep tabs on these things. You people that have like 7 jobs, it's hard to keep up with you all. Jason Sobel, my good buddy, joins us tonight on the show. One of the things I was just marveling at before we get into the whole ups and downs of what we saw on Sunday and over the 4 days of this event at LA Country Club, just up the road from where I am, is... we never talk about toughness, mental toughness. We think about it in terms of all the other sports. And when you say it in golf, people kind of chuckle. What are you talking about? They're guys walking around with golf clubs. I was just marveling yesterday at the mental toughness on all of these guys. Shot after shot after shot. Because that thing on Saturday, that course on Saturday and Sunday was not the same course it was on Thursday and Friday. That course got noticeably tougher. Yeah, Tommy Fleetwood shot a 63 yesterday and Cam Smith had a decent round, but that course got noticeably tougher. And the ability of these guys, after hitting a bad shot, to be able to get up and then, flop it within a few feet out of some of this heavy rough and some of these lies in the bunker, I got to tip my hat, because I don't know why, even as somebody that plays golf, you don't really realize it until you sit down and look at it. These guys are the best in the world for a reason.
And so, look, every guy who plays in the U.S. Open, every guy who has a PGA Tour card, they're really good at hitting a golf ball. That's why they've gotten to that level. What separates a Wyndham Clark from a guy who's still struggling to keep his card, struggling to maintain top 10 finishes on the PGA Tour, the difference is the mental side of the game. So you mentioned I work for Sirius XM PGA Tour Radio. One of my colleagues, Drew Stoltz, grew up as sort of a mentor. He was older than Wyndham. He's probably about 6 or 7 years older, but they grew up in the Colorado, Denver area. And so he's known Wyndham his entire life. And he has, like I said, been kind of a mentor to him. And he told me probably about 5 or 6 months ago, he said, watch out for Wyndham. He said he started working with a sports psychologist and someone who's worked with some other big-time PGA Tour players. He said, this is the next step. This is what he needs because he's got all the shots. And for those who haven't followed his career and don't understand sort of the scouting report on Wyndham Clark, essentially what it's been is for the last 3, 4, 5 years, he's been a guy that is really good with 2 clubs in the bag. The biggest one and essentially the one you use on the greens. It's driver and putter. And everything in between, sort of the take on him, the scouting report on him was if his irons are just average, he's going to hit it long and straight and he's going to make enough putts that he can contend. This year, what we've seen is actually his iron game has been the best part of his game. He's been a really good iron player throughout the entire season. What we saw this weekend was, all right, he drives it well, we knew that. Iron game is much better, we knew that. Putting is really good. And now, all of a sudden, he's essentially, I believe, added to the arsenal that, oh, by the way, I'm going to get up and down from every lie that I've had all weekend. So when you do that, and you've got the mental toughness to it, there's not a whole lot that can beat you. No,
it's very true. But, look, not to make this about Rory, and we can get into Ricky, too, if we have enough time here, but I mean, and bless his heart, Andy North tried to make it sound like he didn't have any real opportunities at birdie yesterday because he couldn't hit it close enough to the hole. I'm like, Andy, what were you watching? He had enough opportunities to make putts. I mean, he had 4 that were inside of 18 feet. You got to make one, Rory. And even Rory rued the fact that his putter didn't get it done. He was so good tee to green. And look, he's going to win another major. I know it's been 9 years and people think it's, now at this point, will it ever happen again? But I mean, you got to make one putt in this round, and you're in a playoff or maybe even the champion. I mean, what did you make of what we saw from Rory, from where he was the week after the Masters to where he is now?
Okay, so a few things. First of all, I thought this was, even though a different scenario because he led it that one, I thought it was very similar to the final round at St. Andrews in the Open Championship last year, where essentially he hit all the greens. He was hitting it fine. He wasn't playing badly. but he wasn't capitalizing on any chances. And I felt like it was the same for Rory yesterday, where he just never stuck one. You said he had 4 inside of 18 feet. Okay, but how many did he have inside of 5 feet? That it's like, all right, I stuck an iron shot. I stuck an approach shot. I can make that putt and move up the leaderboard. He didn't hit bad putts. And I know that we live in this black and white world right now where it's like, okay, well, he didn't make putts, so he putted bad. And now, you know what? He really putted pretty well. It's just when you're putting from 30 feet away and you lag it to 6 inches and it doesn't go in, and it happens over and over and over again, you start looking at it and go, well, I guess you didn't putt well because you didn't make anything. I would probably maintain that the wedge game needs to tighten up a little bit better. 14 gave himself a chance with a wedge, third shot in, puts the wedge in the face of the bunker, gets a great ruling on it, which wasn't the wrong rule. It was the right ruling, but I don't know if it's like, I mean, a little guilt play here or what's going on, but Rory, all of a sudden they're talking on TV like he can make this shot. I mean, he can hold us out for birdie, and he hits it 10, 12 feet past the hole and misses the comebacker and makes bogey. It's like, come on, man. At some point, you need to hit the ball near the hole so you can putt. You've got to understand. Look, we all play golf. I don't care if you're a recreational golfer, you're a double-digit handicap. You're out there playing, you're like, I can't make anything. Well, what do I need to do? I need to go hit it closer. And whether that means from 150 yards or that means from 5 yards off the green, at some point you go, I can't leave myself 10 feet because there's no way I'm making a 10-footer right now. All right, let me hit it closer. And Rory never did that.
No, he certainly didn't. What did you make of Ricky Fowler, who put himself in position? You know, it's been a long struggle over the last 4 or 5 years for him to get back into a position like this. And there he was yesterday, and he obviously struggled. A small step backwards, but do you get the sense that Fowler is back now and here to stay, and we'll see him in contention again at some of these big events?
He was back before this one, and I've been saying it for a couple months now, Jason, that Ricky Fowler, I think maybe the people that aren't watching golf on a weekly basis, that aren't paying attention, are like, oh, that's a cute story. Ricky Fowler, he's playing good golf again. Kind of, that's nice. It's like, no, Ricky Fowler's playing like a top 10, top 15 player in the world over the last 6 months. He's been that good. He had 7 top 20s in 8 starts coming into the U.S. Open this past week. I think that, look, at some point you just kind of like, you run out of gas a little bit. He shot 62 on Thursday. He's been stepping on the gas pedal for 3 days, been in the heat of contention for 3 days. And at some point it's just, you can't keep it going. I felt like, and I spoke with a handful of players after the round doing my duties for U.S. Open radio, and Ricky was more discouraged, despondent than any of them. I think he felt like this was his big chance. He never took advantage of it. Never really looked comfortable out there from the first tee moving on. And so I do think that he'll be back in this situation. Like I said, he's playing some great golf right now. He's got the entire world rooting for him. He went out after being teary-eyed in his interview session and talking to everybody that wanted to talk to him. He went over and signed autographs for kids for an hour, which he's been doing, whether he shoots 78 or 62 for the last 15 years, which is really admirable. At some point, the golf gods repay Ricky Fowler with something big, and I think it's coming at some point in the not-too-distant future.
Last time here, I got about a minute left. What did you think of LA Country Club and sort of the way that course battled back over the last 2 days after these guys tore it up for the first 2?
I mentioned that, we all want this black and white, good or bad, yes or no answer in our society these days. Look, you can be a really good course at a really good club and not necessarily be a great U.S. Open course. Or you can be a great U.S. Open course, but the setup isn't quite right. I think they played it a little too conservatively, and by they, I mean the USGA and their setup over the first couple of days. It got much harder. The weather cooperated over the weekend. I thought it was a very good traditional U.S. Open track. They'll know. This is the first time that LACC hosted a U.S. Open. The next time they go back, which isn't for 16 years, but they'll have a better idea of how to set up this golf course the next time they do it. So I like, I'm telling you, for all the people that are like tanning this golf course, like, oh, 62s, this place is terrible. Go to LACC North. Go take a little spin around that golf course. The last thing you'd ever call it was terrible. It is an unbelievable piece of property, a really good course. You might not like how it played out on TV, and that's fine, but the course is not a bad course whatsoever.
That's Jason Sobel. Catch him on Sirius XM PGA Tour Radio. Also does a great job over on the Action Network. Thank you, my friend. I know you've been busy. I appreciate it.
You got it, bud.
Awesome. Jason Sobel joining us here on the show. All right, we're coming back. Let you know what's going on in baseball tonight. A couple other odds and ends to wrap up this first hour of the show. I'm Jason Page. Good to have you with us. The Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Thanks, dude. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
You think will that be the last one Wyndham Clark wins, or is he good enough? Or is he Lucas Glover, or is he going to win some more?
He might get another one, 3-4 years from now. I don't think he's going to start picking them off every single week, but he's a good player. He's going to keep getting better. So yeah, he can certainly get another one at some point. Get a PGA 2029 PGA championship. Sure, whatever.
Good stuff, man. Appreciate it. Be well,
Yeah.
Jason.
All right,
bye bye.
You too. Take care.
Wow, Firebirds come back with 3 unanswered. It's 3-1 Coachella Valley. Oh my goodness. All right. Whew. Good to have you all with us tonight. Thank you again to Jason Sobel for stopping by the show. Sirius XM PGA Tour Radio, also Action Network. Whew. It was a fun tournament the last couple of days. Like I said, it was almost a complete reversal from what we saw on Thursday and Friday at that U.S. Open to where we were when the tournament ended. That was tough, man. If that had been a 3-day event as opposed to a 4-day event, would have looked at it a lot different. Hint, hint. To all our friends on the world of live golf. Next hour coming up in about 15 minutes, we will get into all the NBA news, and there is plenty of it as it relates to the Bradley Beal, Chris Paul trade, Phoenix and Washington making a huge deal. I got something to say about it. We'll get into that. I didn't get into it with Jason because we only had one segment with him. But Tom Watson took some shots at PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan in an open letter earlier today that was released. Watson really questioned this new business partnership with Saudi backers of Live Golf, asking whether the deal was the only way to solve the tour's financial hardship. And while he said that he obviously was hoping for Jay Monahan to recover from whatever medical illness has him away from work these days, he stepped in, he laid into him pretty good. He laid into him pretty good on the whole situation. A lot of missing details, though. Future of Live Golf and all of that. Anyway, it's an interesting letter. If you get a second, go and check it out. Look, there's so many interesting storylines. This first 70 games of the Major League Baseball season has been fascinating. And I know people don't get into baseball until, the All-Star break or just after Memorial Day. People will start tuning it in, and obviously we're past that point. But let me tell you, there are going to be a lot more buyers than there are sellers at baseball's trade deadline. Just go and look at the standings right now. The Cincinnati Reds, I don't know if anybody realized this. We were joking around last week about the A's who won 7 in a row, and they're still just absolutely dreadful because now they've lost 5 straight after winning those 7 straight. The Cincinnati Reds have won 9 in a row. 9. The San Francisco Giants have won 7 in a row. Cincinnati is in first place in the National League Central. They call them the Baby Reds. I don't care that their run differential is minus 18 and the Rangers is plus 148. First place is first place. Not every first place team looks exactly the same. Just get in. And for a team like Cincinnati, who's been bad so much of the last 20 years, and tonight they got back Joey Votto, who has been missing in action this year. I think he tore like a tendon in his bicep or tricep. I mean, it was some brutal injury that it's taken him obviously a long time to come back from. And he's not a spring chicken, so something like that is even probably tougher to recover from at this stage of his career. But Joey Votto was back on the field tonight for the Cincinnati Reds. And if you want to root for somebody this year, root for Joey Votto.
Bash to right! His first game back! Joseph Daniel Votto!
cool is that? I mean, seriously. I mean, it's been a long road back for Joey Votto. It's a home run tonight in his return. And Cincinnati, wouldn't you know it, beat the Rockies tonight 5-4. They are 38-35. Is that as good as the Rangers 44-27? Of course it isn't. But just cool to see Votto come back. 2 for 3 tonight. 3 RBIs. And, boy, if he could be anything like the Joey Votto from a few years back, I mean, the Reds would be elated. But it's just one game, so it obviously still remains to be seen what he can provide to that team. How my boy Tovar doing? I know he still isn't playing. He's on paternity leave. Ezekiel Tovar is my pet project on the Rockies this year because I've got a card of his that is going to be of some value. So, oh well, that's okay. Cool story, though, the Reds get a win tonight. Red Sox win. They beat the Twins 9-3 after sweeping the Yankees out of Fenway Park. Ugh, so bad. Mets beat the Astros 11-1 tonight. And I said it last week on the show. It's going to be a struggle for the Astros with no Yordan. I mean, there are certain guys, teams can get by and win games, but being contenders is a totally different thing. I mentioned the Yankees getting swept by the Red Sox, and they've struggled a bit here over the last week or so. The reality is, without Aaron Judge, it is just not the same baseball team. And he will be back here in the next few days. The Yankees have, he's starting to swing. He's starting to feel normal. He's starting to get back to some baseball activity. But you find out quickly why MVPs are MVPs. I say this all the time. You learn more about an MVP when they're not in the lineup, not on the court, not on the field, not on the ice. You learn more about an MVP in those moments sometimes than you do when they're actually on the field. Because it's easy to take for granted. It's easy to take for granted what some of these amazing athletes playing Major League Baseball do. It's so easy to just take it for granted. But the fact of the matter is, the Yankees' record without Aaron Judge versus their record with him in the lineup, the evidence is plain to see. We submit it to the jury, they come back guilty. I mean, the data is not refutable in any way, shape, or form. And I'll be curious to see what the Astros look like here over this next 4 or 5 weeks without Yordan Alvarez. They were able to scuffle and get by without Altuve for a little bit. But what are they going to look like without the big bat of Yordan Alvarez? Now, I know Jose Abreu has started to hit a little better as of late. And it's not even just the loss of Alvarez. It's the arms, too. I mean, they're getting crushed with injuries in the rotation as well. But the story of the Cincinnati Reds, a very cool one. That NL Central, which will be up for grabs. I mean, Cincinnati, Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, all with a shot. Even the Cubs at 34-38 are 3.5 games out. Everybody's going to have a shot at that division. The Cardinals are 11 out of 15 stretch away from being back in the mix, which is why they may not be sellers at the deadline. You go and look at that division. 38-35 leads the division. 30-43 is dead last. The run differentials are anywhere from +17 to -32. It's just a logjam in that division. Nobody's great, and even as bad as St. Louis has been, and at times they've been non-competitive this year, the Cardinals are still just 1 3-week stretch of good baseball away from being in the conversation in the NL Central. That's why nobody in that, who's going to be a seller in that division? Why would you be? You've all got a shot to get in. NL West, other than Colorado, who's a seller? NL East, other than Washington, who's a seller? Are the Mets going to sell off if it gets really bad over at Citi Field? Maybe. All right, some NBA to start the next hour. Big news, trades, proposed trades, Draymond Green news. It's all next. Hour number 2, right around the corner on the Cash-In. Yes. Yes. Baseball, too. Throw the baseball segment in there, too. Another hour hour of the show starts right now on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Glad to have you as part of it. 1-800-224-2004 in this hour of the show, or any hour of the show. 800-224-2004. You want to text the show, go ahead and do it. 888-670-8549. 888-670-8549. I love the overreactions. I think one of the things I pride myself in on this show, as much as anything we do, is avoiding overreactions. It's not to say we're never guilty of it. We're human. We are fallible. Some of us more than others. But I think we avoid the hyperbole train and stay off of it better than just about any show you'll ever listen to anywhere in radio. And I don't think that's being hyperbolic at all. There are some places that treat sports radio listeners and sports TV listeners or viewers as if they're dummies. I see it all the time. There are so many networks out there and shows that treat their listeners as if they're stupid. They're just a bunch of sheep. I just don't do that. You're smart enough to see with your own eyes. I mean, look, Chris Paul has played an entire career. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. There are just some guys that are bred to win a championship. From the moment LeBron James stepped on a basketball court and you watched LeBron James play, you knew LeBron James was going to win an NBA championship. Nothing was going to deny him. I call it greatness undeterred. It's like Novak Djokovic. Greatness undeterred. Tiger Woods, greatness undeterred. Rory, greatness undeterred. There's just some guys you watch, and then you watch guys like Mike Trout. Greatness, Hall of Fame worthy. One of the best players of the generation. Is there a soul alive that thinks Mike Trout's ever going to win a World Series? Now, again, baseball's a little different than sports like basketball or even hockey, football to some degree. You know, the one guy that might be the exception to the rule of guys you thought would never win a championship despite being one of the greatest of their generation? I think of John Elway. John Elway is one of those guys that if you had told me up until he won a Super Bowl, would he ever win one? I probably would have said no. And he wound up winning a couple. He might have won another if he decided to hang around and not retire. But there are just some guys that you know are bred for greatness, that are destined for greatness, that they're going to wind up in a position to win a championship and get over the finish line. Chris Paul is not one of those guys. If you haven't figured that out by now, shame on you. And if you're the Lakers and you go all in this offseason on Chris Paul, if the choice is Chris Paul, Kyrie Irving, and you go down the Chris Paul road, and anybody who knows me knows I am not a Kyrie guy. I'm not a Kyrie Irving guy at all. Great player, but as a human being, as a character guy in your locker room, the distractions that he comes along with, do I want to deal with that? Absolutely not. But for 1 year and 1 year only, because you're in win now mode with this team with Anthony Davis and LeBron James and the talent that's on this roster around them, you're in win now mode. It's not building for the future. The answer is easy. It's get Kyrie at all costs. It is not go and get ancient Chris Paul who, while still being a solid NBA guard and probably could put together another good year, is going to find some way to get hurt in the postseason or late in the regular season or miss enough games that it's going to cause you some angst when it comes to playoff positioning. You already know how old LeBron is. He's going to have surgery in the offseason. Anthony Davis is a chandelier waiting to fall. I mean, it's simply too big of a hill to climb for me mentally, from a justification standpoint, to sit here and make the case that the right move is Chris Paul because of his veteran leadership and all of this great. I'm sorry, I cannot get there. I'm not rooting against Chris Paul. There's other places he could wind up that I think he could help a team win a championship. Boston is definitely a spot. You don't need him in Miami. The Heat already have Kyle Lowry coming off the bench, and we saw he could still play at a good level for 20 to 25 minutes a night. So I don't think you need him in Miami. But I don't, for the life of me, I mean, look, I don't think either of the Lakers' choices are great for completely different reasons. And for those who don't know, Bradley Beal is going to Phoenix in this deal, with Chris Paul going back to Washington, along, with the swapping of draft picks, and Phoenix sending some second round picks because they have nothing left to give. They gave it all up to get Kevin Durant. Who are they going to put on? Everybody's sitting here and saying, "Oh, I'm putting Phoenix second now. I'm putting Phoenix second." I love how everybody's out there trying to make predictions already. The ink's not even dry on the deal yet. And you've got stooges on this network, that network, every network you could imagine. And yes, they are stooges to sit here and try and predict. And then when they're all wrong, they're all not going to talk about how badly they got it wrong. None of them will. None of them will. None of them will look you in the eye and say, "Boy, did we screw that up." Because they got to keep you listening. I'm flabbergasted, because all people could tell you is, wow, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant on the same team, and maybe DeAndre Ayton. You don't even know who's going to be on the team around these three guys. How are they going to field a complete roster without going $200 million over the cap and paying a gigantic tax, which, don't get me wrong, Matt Ishbia is fully prepared to pay. When you go and get Kevin Durant, you've already made the decision that you're going to do whatever it takes to win. And again, I will respect the player all the time who does that. Pushing all your chips into the middle of the table, that is way better than, basically bowing out after 81 regular season games like Dallas did and saying, you know what? We'd rather have the 12th pick in the first round of the draft rather than trying to get Luka into the postseason, even if it's in the play-in tournament. By the way, did you see where Miami got to the NBA Finals from? The play-in tournament. Nice job there, Dallas. Hello to our friends, by the way, on 97.1 The Freak. I know you guys are tuned in tonight. But to sit here and try and project, to try and, put something out into the ether that Phoenix is going to be this or Phoenix is going to be that, when other than those three guys on the roster, you have no idea who the hell is going to be on this Phoenix Suns roster next year. Nobody knows outside of those three guys. And how are all those three guys going to play together? Are they all going to get the last shot? They're all shot makers. None of them are really shot creators. So now you've got three shot makers. Oh, yeah, that's going to go over great. By the way, last big three that we got excited about in an offseason. Harden, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. Let me know how that worked out. Not all big threes win championships, man. Everybody thinks they get a big three, they're going to win a championship. That ain't how it works. A lot of big threes that never won anything. They don't even know if DeAndre Ayton's going to be on this team. Yeah, new head coach. You want to sit there and try and sell me on Phoenix as a title. Denver is the team to beat. And frankly, they're the team to beat to me until we get about 40 or 50 games into the next regular season. Honestly, I don't even want to have a discussion about it. Till we're about 40 or 50 games into the regular season next year, it's silly. It's pure folly to sit here and I know everybody's got to get a prediction in to make themselves look smart. So next year they could say they guessed it right. It's purely a guess, and it's not even an educated guess to try and figure out where any of these teams are going to be by the time we get to the start of next season, let alone the finish line of next season. Stop playing your listeners and viewers for fools. And to the listeners and viewers who ingest this crap that comes out of some of these people's mouths, be smarter. I mean, how realistic is it to think that you have any idea what Phoenix is going to be in 9 months? We're coming back. That could go in the pod, too. I'll just have to let it go. Baseball is always one of the lighter nights of the week is Mondays. And today is no exception to that rule. Giants had won 7 in a row coming into play today. And they are on the verge. Well, I shouldn't say on the verge. It's bottom of the 5th. San Diego leads San Francisco 5-1 in San Fran tonight. Text from James in Detroit, Michigan said, "Hey, Jason, a certain stooge, former NBA player on ESPN. Would that be Kendrick Perkins? Is that who you're referring to, I think, James, in Detroit?" I mean, look, guys are going to say what they're going to say, and people are going to decide where they want to get their views on sports from. And I don't pretend to be smarter than anybody else, but I think it's the height of hubris, ill-guided hubris, no less, to think that anybody trying to project, what these teams are going to look like by the time we get to the start of the NBA season. Like I said, nobody even knows what's going to happen with DeAndre Ayton and whether he's going to be a part of that team, whether they're going to have to move him in order to get some pieces to put around these guys. Otherwise, they're going to be fielding a court, putting a team on the court that's filled with guys making the league minimum. They were already way over the cap. I mean, this is crazy. James in Detroit, Michigan, nonetheless, texts me. "Hey, Jason, a certain stooge, former NBA player on ESPN, said on late Sunday night that the Phoenix Suns are the best team in the NBA after the Beal-Paul deal. Absolutely an idiotic take by that certain stooge." James in Detroit. Appreciate it, James. I mean, it's funny. All you can do is laugh at it when people start spouting off that nonsense. And then they'll get asked their opinion again when they're inevitably wrong about something. Denver is still the team to beat in the West. And regardless of who the Lakers get, I mean, Denver is a really well-rounded team. I'm not saying this to suck up to my audience listening on Mile High Radio in Denver. Hello to you guys tuning into the show tonight. But we shortchanged the Nuggets long enough. We gave them short shrift the entire NBA season. Nobody bought into the idea. Nobody bought into the idea that the Phoenix Suns were that the Denver Nuggets were a team to beat. Everybody figured at some point they were going to cave. They were going to fold. They weren't tough enough. Even Michael Malone's comments. Even Michael Malone's comments after Game 2 of that series, where he questioned his team's toughness and effort and all of that, made people wonder. It gave the writers something to go all in on. And when all was said and done, this team easily won an NBA championship. They went 16-4. And you could sit here and talk about the level of competition in the West. I've talked about it. But 16-4 in the playoffs, I don't care who it's against. It's still the best of the best that make the postseason. Denver's a really good basketball team. You know what? Stop. No, I'm not even going to say it. They're a great basketball team. They are a great basketball team. I heard somebody today call them very good. No, they're not very good. They're great. They're NBA champions. Give them their due. And we're already looking for the next best news. My God, they're still cleaning up the confetti in Denver, for crying out loud. And we're already crowning We're already crowning the next champions for next year. It's the Phoenix Suns. I mean, help me out with this, somebody. 1-800-224-2004. Thank you for the text, James in Detroit, Michigan. Listening up there tonight. 888-670-8549. If you want to text the show from anywhere in America, send us your name, where you're texting from. 888-670-8549 is the telephone number if you want to reach out to us that way on the show. I'm exhausted sometimes from having to, and this is why I don't listen. People always laugh when I say this, and I'm deadly serious when I say it. I do not listen to much of what's on sports radio. I really don't. I don't listen to other shows. So whatever you hear from me, you know it's coming from me. It's not coming from something I heard on another channel, another network, another show, because I don't listen to anybody else. Because most of what is on doesn't really excite me. It doesn't make me think. It doesn't make me feel like I'm smarter when I'm done listening to it or watching it. Just does nothing for me. And that's not to say there isn't some good stuff out there. I choose to be my own person and have my own thoughts. I read the stories of the day, write them down, write down what I want to talk about, and then we go and do it. That's it. Anyway, as for the odds, because we are a show that likes to engage in, dabble in, discuss the nuances of sports betting, the NBA bookmakers, the sports books have responded to the move by the Suns. They have elevated their chances to win an NBA championship next year. Denver right now is plus 460 to win it all. Boston is plus 500 to win it all. Milwaukee is plus 500 to win it all. Phoenix, fourth best odds. And I think that's fair, by the way. I don't think that's unrealistic. I mean, who are you going to put ahead of them? You're going to put Gold. I'm still laughing at the fact that, but there is such a disparity in the odds for next year's finals. Denver 460, Boston 500, Milwaukee 500, Phoenix 650. Then the drop-off is immense. The odds double to the next closest team, and that's Golden State at plus 1,300, which is still a joke to me. And I'll get to that coming up in about 7 minutes here on the show, because there was news from the Bay Area today, and it's what we all expected. Any of us that were, smart enough to be paying attention to what was going on this season. It's not a surprise to see the news coming out of Warrior Land today, and we'll get to that coming up in a couple of minutes, what it means for that team, what it means for the rest of the West, the landscape out there. So Golden State is plus 1,300. So it goes from Phoenix, the fourth best odds at plus 650, to Golden State at plus 1,300. Then it's Philadelphia at 1,400, the Lakers at 1,500. If you want to go, if there is ever a team that you want to go put a futures bet in on right now, it's the Lakers at plus 1,500, because those odds are going to go down to probably under plus 1,000 whenever they make the inevitable move that they are going to make. And there is an inevitable move that is coming, whether it's Kyrie, whether it's Chris Paul, whatever it's going to be. The Lakers are going to do something to ensure that LeBron James feels motivated to come back next year and not sit out a year and wait until Bronny is ready to play in the NBA. But make no mistake about it. Those Laker odds at plus 1,500 will be under plus 1,000. They will be the fifth best odds by the time this NBA offseason ends. That is a prediction I am comfortable making. And other teams are going to make moves too. You know, Damian Lillard could wind up elsewhere. I mean, there's so much to be said for what could still go on in this offseason. Just got to wait it out. All right, we'll get to what happened with the Warriors today and Draymond. Give you the full lay of the land as far as that is concerned. That is still to come in this hour. And two of the cooler sports stories today that aren't getting a lot of play. We'll get to those in about 20 minutes as well. It's the Cash In. Papa Dukes, what's going on? I'm feeling a gout attack now. It was in my right foot. Now it's traveled into my left foot. It's not in my right foot. halfway home on this Monday edition of the show. Thanks for being a part of it. Whether you're listening on Mile High Radio in Denver, The Horn in Austin, Houston, 97.1 The Freak in Dallas, like our friend James in Detroit, Green Bay, no matter where you are, thank you for tuning us in tonight on the show. We are everywhere from Maine to Hawaii. I mean, we literally have stations as far as Maine and as far as Honolulu. Hello, Honolulu. Say hello. If you're listening in Honolulu tonight, text me and say hello. Love hearing from our friends in Honolulu. By the way, to update you on the game that is my rapt attention tonight here on the show, Coachella Valley 4, Hershey 2, Game 6 of the Calder Cup Finals that nobody other than me, 10,000 people inside this arena just outside Palm Springs, and some people in Hershey, Pennsylvania are interested in. I'll just go ahead and open it. Make the noise anyway. You're going to do it. Make the noise. Please, really. It's not like there isn't a radio show going on here. Make noise. I don't need silence. It's not a golf tournament. It's a little noise, right? Between the dog tapping his feet on the floor like he's Sammy Davis. It's fine. So anyway, yeah, Coachella Valley Game 6 Calder Cup Finals tonight. Leads Hershey 4-2, trying to force a Game 7. The hockey season is not over until the AHL Calder Cup Finals is done, baby. Now, look, people are going to try and predict what's going to happen with this Draymond Green situation in Golden State with the Warriors. And this is one where unless you're really on the inside, unless you've got really good sources, we're all guessing. And I will be the first one to admit because again, I don't play my audience for fools. I could sit here and fake it like I know something, that I have some inside information. And I do have friends that are with the flagship station of the Golden State Warriors, but I don't think even they know. I don't think anybody has any true insight as to how this Draymond Green situation is going to play out. It's just there's just way too much uncertainty. And the Warriors could sit here all day and say the right things in the press, which is Mike Dunleavy Jr. says, we really want Draymond Green back. They have to say that because those in the fan base would never forgive them if they treated somebody who is a legend in the minds of that franchise and that fan base, because he helped deliver all these championships. If they treated him with disrespect after he declined his player option for $27.5 million for next year, if they treated him with disrespect after that decision, that fan base would never forgive them for it. Whereas if they let the process play out, and look, all of this eventually will become public. So rather than jumping to conclusions and trying to predict how this is going to play out over the next few months, let it play out. Draymond has something that he hasn't had in a long time, and that is free agency. Albeit at the back end of his career, forget back nine. Now you're talking about the final few holes of his career. He could easily walk away from the game if he wanted to. But I think it was widely expected that Draymond Green was going to opt out. It opens up way more avenues to him than simply coming back for another year. No Bob Myers there anymore as his sounding board. This was the move that always made sense. Clutch Sports CEO Rich Paul, who also represents LeBron James, by the way, told ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski on Monday, quote, "We will continue to talk to Golden State and explore all options." Again, now he could talk with the Warriors. They could look at sign-in trades, free agency. And it's not, for the Warriors to sit there and say, and Mike Dunleavy Jr. has said, we really want Draymond Green back. Don't say it. If you want him back, make an offer that he simply cannot refuse. And if you make him an offer that he can't refuse and he still does, then he never wanted to come back. Put the ball in his court. If you really want him back, then you're going to blow him away with an offer. Be damned the taxes that Joe Lacob is going to have to pay in order to make that happen. And run it back with this same team that was barely over 500 this past season. I got news for you. I don't care what the Warriors do. You want to talk about teams? Unless there is something big brewing with them in terms of, adding a significant piece, Draymond Green will not be the difference in them winning or losing a championship next year. I can promise you that. Draymond Green will not be the reason they come up short or wind up being a championship team. So put that out of your mind right now. That is not going to be the difference maker. This team is currently comprised is not winning a championship. They are not better than Denver. I'd even argue they're not better than the Lakers. I think if they played Sacramento again, Sacramento having another year under their belt, I think Sacramento would give them a run. I mean, they are exactly what they were this year. They're the fourth or fifth best team in the West. And I don't know what the move is on the horizon for that organization that suddenly elevates them to the level of the Denver Nuggets. Are they in that second tier? Maybe the lower end of the second tier in the West? That's about it. And they've got some very difficult decisions to make in that organization. As an organization, they've got some very difficult decisions to make. Because nobody ever wants to admit when the run is over. The Yankees went through this in the early 2000s, where they had to make a determination as to whether or not the run was over with that group. After the championships of the late 90s and all that stuff, they had to make a determination whether or not they were still able to win with that team. And eventually they parted ways with Joe Torre and had to say goodbye to him. Every great dynasty has to go through this decision-making process. The Warriors could still be entertaining. They could still be good enough that they're going to sell out that arena every night down the street from where the Giants play in the beautiful Bay Area. I mean, they could still do all that. And then at the end of the year, they go out, play in the first round, get bounced in the second round, and go through that for a couple of years before the realization hits that they are no longer championship contenders. And after they've exhausted all those options and can look their fan base in the eyes and say, look, we tried giving it an extra year or two with this group and they're not good enough to win. Now maybe after next season when Klay Thompson's a free agent, now you could start the slow strip down. You trade away in Andrew Wiggins. Maybe Stephen Curry says, I want to finish my career in Charlotte where my dad had the best years of his career. Maybe we get to that point. You could see it from far away. If you really want to, if you could take an objective stance on the Warriors, if you're not inside the Bay Area, if you're not on the Bay Area sports radio stations like I used to be, if you step back from it, you can see how this plays out. They make another run at it next year. They don't win anything. They don't win a championship or anything like that. They come up well short. Now Clay is a free agent. He tries to make his case. You slowly strip it down. Draymond leaves out, Draymond's gone. Clay is gone. But don't tell me you want Draymond back. Make him a mind-blowing offer. And put the ball in his court. Pun intended. Then you can make the case to your fan base that you really wanted him back. We're coming back with more of the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Okay. Cricket. Good to have you with us tonight. SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Another hour, the final hour of this show is right around the corner. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004 is the phone number. The text line is open, 888-670-8549, 888-670-8549. You can hit me up on Twitter, at The Back Page. Again, on Twitter, at The Back Page. You can watch us over on Twitch, Jason Page 77. You can watch us on Twitter at The Back Page. You can watch us on Facebook and YouTube. It's as simple as just looking for the Cash In with Jason Page. Easy as that. Two cool under the radar sports stories. And sometimes I put these at the very end of the show in the final segment. And I honestly didn't think that was fair to do, because a lot of times by that time it's almost 1 a.m. on the East Coast. Not that it's early now at almost midnight on the East Coast, but I don't like to feel like we're just burying some really cool sports stories in the course of a day. 43-year-old Venus Williams. We all talk about Serena, and Serena has had a historic career and a historic run. But long before there was Serena, there was Venus. And now apparently long after Serena, there is still Venus. Best sports story of the day. Venus Williams, I think, is ranked 696th. And I'm not having fun here. I'm not trying to be a wise guy, as Joe Biden would say. Venus Williams is ranked, I believe, 696th in the world at this stage in her career. She hasn't played over the last 6 months because of a hamstring injury. Sorry, I gave her one ranking too many. She's 697th in the world. She's 43 years old, and she's still out there, not just competing, but competing in events that you don't even know are going on in tennis. That's how small they are. 7 times Venus Williams has won a Grand Slam. 5 times she's won Wimbledon singles. Venus Williams today, at the age of 43, and ranked 697th in the world, on a grass court event in Birmingham, England today, got her first victory over a player in the top 50 in nearly 4 years. She beat Camilla Giorgi, who's ranked 48th in the world, 7-6, 4-6, 7-6, after more than 3 hours at the Birmingham Classic. Just take that in for a second. Think about yourself. I don't know how old you are if you're listening to the show. Maybe in your 30s, maybe in your 40s, maybe your 50s or 60s. Think about at 43. Imagine at 43, the physicality of tennis. And think about what we were just watching at the French Open, where Carlos Alcaraz couldn't even hold it together for more than 2 sets against Novak Djokovic before he basically bowed out in the semifinals of that tournament, dropping the final couple of sets 6-1, 6-1 because of cramping. He's 19, 20 years old. Here's Venus at 43 playing a 3-hour match on Monday and still having that desire. I mean, that is competitive spirit, competitive energy, competitive toughness, whatever words you want to throw out, whatever superlatives suit you. I mean, that is just otherworldly at that age. It'll go under the radar. I saw ESPN did a quick thing on it today, and that was cool. I'm glad they gave her just due. But for her to go out there at that age, hit the shot she was at. She's still hitting her serves. She was hitting 120-mile-an-hour serves today. She's 43. There's a word for that. You know what it is? And it's meant in a complimentary way. She's a freak of nature. At 43, to be hitting bombs at 120. It's just, wow. It's a Wimbledon warm-up. I'm sure she'll be at Wimbledon. Hopefully she's healthy enough to play. And you know what? Bless her heart. If she wants to play till she's 45, fit, play as long as you want. When you can still be that competitive in whatever you do at that age. Now, we hear so much made of age. I'll slip into politics for just a second. We hear so much about age. You know, Joe Biden is this old, and how could he ever be president for another term, and all of this stuff. We love to take old people and just, all right, you've had your time, go sit it out now. We love to take people that we think are too old to do whatever it is they do. And we just love to sort of cast them aside. All right, you sit out the last few years of this. Enjoy your time on the front porch with your country time lemonade. You're only too old when you think you're too old. You're only too old when you stop. You know? I mean, it really is true. You're only as old as you feel. And Venus just still feels like she can compete at that level. Is she going to win another slam? It's probably 1,000,000 to 1 that she could ever get through the gauntlet of an entire tournament. Forget even winning a slam. Can she win one of these events in Birmingham, England? I highly doubt it. Frankly, I don't even know if she'd want to win this event because it would mean she'd have to do so much physically that she'd probably have nothing left by the time she gets to Wimbledon. She doesn't even probably want to win this event. Nonetheless, it was cool to see her out there and competing and being able to win. One more. Frances Tiafoe. You might remember him from last year's U.S. Open tennis tournament in Flushing, Queens, where he made it to the semifinals before he fell to, I believe, Carlos Alcaraz, if I'm not mistaken. He is now in the top 10, only the third Black American tennis player to find himself in the top 10 in the world in the tennis rankings. Arthur Ashe, James Blake, and now Frances Tiafoe. And for the first time in 11 years, you think about how far men's tennis has come in the United States, where it was in a bad place for a long time. 2 Americans are now in the top 10. Frances Tiafoe, Taylor Fritz. Are either of them ever going to win a slam? Look, with Alcaraz and Djokovic still playing at a very high level, the various surfaces that, you know, some guys are favored in more than others, who knows? Who knows? But the fact is, 2 players from the United States in the top 10. First time in 11 years. Very good story. Good way to end this second hour of the show. You got a thought? Send it to us. 1-800-224-2004, 888-670-8549 if you want to hit us up on the text line, 888-670-8549. Trying to think of, there's a lot of potential good spots for a guy like Draymond Green if he understands what his role is and is willing to accept a role and being a role player as opposed to a guy that has to play 35 minutes a night. There's a lot of teams he can help. Despite, all the things that make Draymond Green and can drive you nuts about watching a Draymond Green, There are a lot of teams that could use that sort of veteran toughness. Miami, the Lakers, Memphis. There's a lot of landing spots. There's not going to be a shortage of teams. If he still wants to play, which I think he does, there's not going to be any shortage of teams out there vying for Draymond Green's services. Final hour right around the corner. Stay with us. Yeah, please. Thank you. By the way, Chung, tickets for Game 7, as soon as the Firebirds started getting out to a big lead in this game, 130 is the cheapest ticket for Game 7. No, here. Wednesday night will be Game 7. Oh, I don't know. He hasn't said anything yet. Game's still going on, so. Final hour of a Monday/Tuesday edition of the show. Thanks for being a part of it. SportsMap Radio. SportsMap Radio app. Coming up in 30 minutes, our 2 for 1 tonight, my conversation with Jason Sobel. Oh, boy. Firebirds up 5-2 now. I know I'm the only person in all of sports radio on a national level that's talking about this right now. I'm okay with that. Still really cool. AHL hockey at its best. Anyway, for those who do care, Firebirds up 5-2 on Hershey Game 6 of the Calder Cup Final. And it looks like we'll see you for Game 7 on Wednesday night. A Game 7 winner-take-all for the AHL Championship. The Seattle Kraken's AHL franchise, 1 win away after this one is over, and this will end with a Firebirds win. They will be 1 win away from a Calder Cup final. And let me tell you how bad hockey fever's hit it out here. Tickets for that Game 7 between Hershey and Coachella Valley, tickets for Game 7 are on. They're all sold out already, so there'll be over 10,000 people there on Wednesday night. But tickets on the secondhand ticket market, are the cheapest you can find is about $130 a ticket. And that's for an AHL Calder Cup Final Game 7. Not an NHL game or anything like that. The cheap seats are going for $130 for that game on Wednesday night. It's just crazy. It is. It's absolutely nuts that we're going to be talking about that for minor league hockey, but it is what it is. We'll do the recap on the U.S. Open and talk about what it means for Rory McIlroy, Wyndham Clark, Ricky Fowler, LA Country Club, and how it fared as a U.S. Open venue. Jason Sobel, PGA Tour Radio on Sirius XM Radio, will join us also with the Action Network, and he was working for U.S. Open Radio on the broadcast as well. He'll join us coming up about 27 minutes from now on the show. We'll get some thoughts with him. Look, there were cool stories today, and I went through them in the last hour with Venus Williams and Francis Tiafoe. All that's great. But what you really want is some good NFL offseason, Skinny. Speaking on Monday on the Adam Schefter podcast, Dalvin Cook, the free agent running back, really versatile back with the Vikings last year, played his entire career with the Vikings, was released this month. Floated an interesting idea that certainly got a lot of people's attention. On Monday on the Adam Schefter podcast, Dalvin Cook said of DeAndre Hopkins, also a free agent who remains unsigned at the moment, if we end up on the same roster, that would be something epic for the NFL. I mean, Dalvin Cook's 20, he turns 28 in August. It still is amazing that this guy's just sitting out there. And somebody's going to grab him, whether it's, Miami, like many have theorized, or Denver, as I talked about last week on this show with Nick Ferguson, our friend, the former NFL safety who's in the belly of the beast there in Denver. That, Dalvin Cook would make sense for that team as well. But he was set to take up about $14 million in Minnesota's cap space for the upcoming season. And after trade talks sort of fizzled, the Vikings just decided to release him. And the same thing happened with DeAndre Hopkins, who's on the other side of 30, still has some good football left in him, is obviously not the D-Hop of 5 or 6 years ago. But DeAndre Hopkins could still be a valuable asset. I think we have to I think we have to kind of put away this idea, stuff it in the trash, that guys are done just because they're on the other side of 30. I think it's more a question of the kind of guys that are available make it easier to sort of outmode these guys that are past 30, but simply drawing a conclusion that just because, an Odell Beckham Jr. is on the other side of 30 or a DeAndre Hopkins is on the other side of 30, that these guys can't play at a high level anymore. I think we have to get away from that mindset. Physical training, athletic training, guys' ability to recover from injury, what players, athletes put in their bodies is different now. I just think it's kind of nuts to automatically say that a player is done on the other side of 30. It just doesn't add up to me. On the podcast, Dalvin Cook said, I know his mindset, and I done play against D-Hop a numerous amount of times. When I been with D-Hop, I'm reading this word for word before anybody texts me and says that my grammar is incorrect. When I been with D-Hop, we done chill together. We done been around each other and it's like I kind of see the person that he is like. He want to win, and that's what my mind at too. Okay. I want to go win. Like I said, the money going to come, and that's going to happen. But as far as going to lift that trophy up, talking about the Vince Lombardi trophy, he got that same mindset as me. Boy, could you imagine if the Dolphins made a play for Cook and Hopkins? I mean, wow. That would be something. Got to have the cap space. You got to be able to maneuver the cap to put guys like that on your roster. And it just has to make sense. I mean, God, you know who I would love to see? Man, this is selfish of me. I'd love to see the Giants. What do the Giants have for cap space? What are the New York Giants? Giants salary cap situation. I would love to see the Giants go make a play for DeAndre Hopkins. I haven't heard anything that suggests the Giants have the cap space. Yeah, they don't have the room. They don't have the room, and they can't even figure out how to get Saquon Barkley into the salary cap situation. The Giants have just $3.8 million in salary cap space. So unless somebody's taking a haircut and willing to give some money back, the Giants don't have the space for DeAndre Hopkins. They don't have the space for Dalvin Cook. They don't have the space for anything. Because they gave Daniel Jones all of that money. I wonder how much Hopkins. I wonder what the going rate will be for a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. See, now if he's smart, he waits until a team loses a key receiver. If you're talking about a team that's a contender for the upcoming season, has Super Bowl aspirations. Yes, I know everybody has Super Bowl aspirations, but if you're a team with Super Bowl aspirations, legitimate Super Bowl aspirations, not pie in the sky stuff, DeAndre Hopkins is going to wait until you lose a receiver in training camp or the exhibition season, and he's just going to sit out there and wait. He don't need the money. He made plenty of that. So he's not going to go crazy waiting, he's not going to go run for the first thing that's offered to him. That's why, that's why the whole thing with him potentially going to the Patriots is kind of laughable to me. Even if you add DeAndre Hopkins to the Patriots, okay, maybe they're a wild card team. But they're still not even the third or fourth best team in that division. maybe. Not everybody from that division is going to make the playoffs. So to me, the New England stuff doesn't make much sense to me. Now, again, it's got to make sense from a salary cap perspective. And I'd have to go and look at who has cap space where. And, we'll do that for tomorrow's show. And we'll go through what the potential top destinations are for him. Figure out where the cap space is. And I'm sure somebody's already done that homework. I'll just have to go and look at it. I wasn't planning to get deep into this tonight. That story broke just before we came on the air tonight about Cook and Hopkins. And it's kind of nuts to think the two of them will wind up on the same team. But if you're a team, you're looking to make a splash and really upgrade your offense, those are certainly two guys you can do it with. I mean, Cook is a versatile back. 1,700, 1,800 total yards of offense he can give you. He'll get into the end zone a bit. And Hopkins gives you a huge target and a guy that can out-muscle and out-physical, just about any safety in the game, any corner in the game. All right, stick around. We're coming back. More to do on this Monday/Tuesday edition of the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Not until 17 more minutes. Why? I was just going through the cap stuff during the break. I mean, Kansas City really does make the most sense for DeAndre Hopkins. But from a cap standpoint, how are they going to make it work? That's part of the challenge. I'll be interested to see where Kansas City could potentially fit him in. The Ravens. What are the Ravens? The Ravens, from a cap standpoint, have. There's just so many. Let's see. Baltimore has. Why don't I see Baltimore on my list here? The Ravens have about $10 million freed up. That could work. $10 million? That could certainly work. Again, you got to be talking about teams that if you add him, you become a Super Bowl contender or you already are a contender. Cleveland is on this list I'm looking at. And while they might, be able to make it work from a space perspective, it doesn't make any sense for DeAndre Hopkins. Does it elevate them and make them better than Cincinnati? No. And it depends how much you still look. It's amazing. I work with people that are based in Houston, and they'll still swear that Deshaun Watson, is still, this all-world quarterback. He's barely played the last 3 years. So it's hard for me to buy into the idea that DeAndre Hopkins teamed up with Deshaun Watson suddenly makes the Browns a contender. A contender to what? Make the postseason? Maybe. The Dolphins have almost $14 million available. Do they go and spend that on Dalvin Cook? They certainly can't spend it on both. Here's teams that have a ton of cap space. The Bears have $32 million. What are you sitting on all this money for if you're the Bears? They got $32 million that they're sitting on right now. That they could certainly, make a play. The Cardinals, obviously we know the situation there. He just left there. They just let him go. The Panthers, rebuild mode. Colts, rebuild mode. The Jets have the room. $23 million. Aaron Rodgers wanted Odell Beckham Jr. The Jets, to me, win now mode, that spot makes the most sense to me. You could certainly put him on the Jets. And now you're talking about a team that is a Super Bowl contender, despite the fact that they didn't even make it to the playoffs last year. But the combination, healthy team, D-Hop, right now, you're asking a lot of Alan Lazard. Boy, what's it going to be like for Zach Wilson on that Jets team this year? You were the starting quarterback of the Jets last year. You were the future of that franchise. And now you're less than and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but Zach Wilson is less than an afterthought. We often talk about, athletes as if they're these, chess pieces or, like everything is just a fantasy sports world that we live in. And Zach Wilson has made some mistakes from a growth and maturity standpoint, things he said last year, the way he handled himself. We could get into all of that. But just think about Zach Wilson, the person, for a moment. And try and imagine what's going on in that kid's head. And he is a kid. Hey, Google, how old is Zach Wilson? Let's see what it tells me. He's 23 years old. 2 years ago, he was the future of this franchise. 2 years later, hey, Google, stop. 2 years later, Zach Wilson is an afterthought in this league. And you just wonder, from a mental standpoint, is he ever going to start anywhere again? I mean, the best thing they could do is just let the kid go. But here's the problem. If Aaron Rodgers only plays 1 year, say he wins a Super Bowl and walks, or they go to the conference championship, or whatever, he wins another MVP, he decides to walk. Now you're back at square one with no quarterback. It's kind of like the 49ers, frankly. But it's kind of an interesting thing to think about. So the Jets are a possibility, and they have the cap space. The Cowboys, every time there's a big-time free agent player available, wide receiver, we always think they're going to the Cowboys, but the Cowboys have $20 million. Want to help out your quarterback? Go get him that guy. 49ers? I mean, that team is all about everything but the quarterback, right? The 49ers are about everything but the quarterback. You put enough great pieces around an average to slightly above average quarterback, you don't need to have an all-world quarterback when everything around that quarterback is good. That's the philosophy. That's the philosophy in San Francisco with the 49ers. We've got so many skilled players at other key positions that will beat you everywhere else, that will elevate the play of our quarterback. If that's the case, then DeAndre Hopkins makes a ton of sense for them. Our friend Dave in Connecticut just texted me something funny. Can I read? He texted it, so I'm going to read. He says he can't go to the Cowboys. He wasn't arrested. Our friends in Dallas listening on 97.1 The Freak will not appreciate that, Dave. Those are the sentiments of Dave in Connecticut and not Jason Page or the Cashin. The Eagles. What do the Eagles have for cap space? Philadelphia's got about $13.8 million available. That's certainly enough to probably get it done. And again, those are teams with a chance to win. The Ravens, obviously, who we mentioned. You know, these are teams that have enough space to potentially get a DeAndre Hopkins, and they're potential contenders that can win. The Patriots never made sense to me as a destination for DeAndre Hopkins. Because even if he goes there, he's not. If it's about winning a Super Bowl, then you take less money at this stage if you're DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, look at how much money, career earnings of DeAndre Hopkins. Ain't about the money for him at this point. He's got generational wealth. I mean, how much has he made in his career? I'll give you the exact number here. Coming up in 7 minutes, by the way, Jason Sobel will join us from SiriusXM PGA Tour Radio. We'll recap the U.S. Open with him. Let's see. How much did he make in his career? Career earnings for DeAndre Hopkins, who's 31 years old, just turned 31. He has made $111 million in his career. Something tells me he ain't playing for his next paycheck. Get to a certain point, you're playing for rings. You're playing for adding that one thing to your resume that doesn't currently exist. So Hopkins to the Patriots might sound nice to fans in Boston. It's a pipe dream. He's not going there. If he wants to win. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Let's text the show, too. You can do that. Hit us up, 888-670-8549, 888-670-8549 if you want to hit us up on the text line with any of your thoughts as we continue to move through the show. By the way, coming up in 20 minutes, before we put the wraps on this tonight, I got a funny story, and it is NFL related. I did not know until tonight that the NFL does not allow players in the league to do beer endorsements. They cannot do beer I never knew that NFL players can endorse anything. You cannot endorse beer. Never knew that. Funny story in that regard, though. How one NFL player got around it. Jason Sobel on the other side on the U.S. Open. We'll recap it with him next. Boom, 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 boom. Rolling along on this Friday. Of course, the U.S. Open is the top story of the day, along with the job. Good to have you with us tonight. SportsMap Radio, the SportsMap Radio app, all of our video feeds, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, you name it. Let's not waste any time. Let's get into it with Jason Sobel. PGA Tour, Sirius XM Radio, Action Network too, right? You're still Action Network, right? I'm just making sure. I got to keep tabs on these things. You people that have like 7 jobs, it's hard to keep up with you all. Jason Sobel, my good buddy, joins us tonight on the show. One of the things I was just marveling at before we get into the whole ups and downs of what we saw on Sunday and over the 4 days of this event at LA Country Club, just up the road from where I am, is... we never talk about toughness, mental toughness. We think about it in terms of all the other sports. And when you say it in golf, people kind of chuckle. What are you talking about? The guys walking around with golf clubs. I was just marveling yesterday at the mental toughness on all of these guys. Shot after shot after shot. Because that thing on Saturday, that course on Saturday and Sunday was not the same course it was on Thursday and Friday. That course got noticeably tough. Good to have you with us tonight. SportsMap Radio, the SportsMap Radio app, all of our video feeds, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, you name it. Let's not waste any time. Let's get into it with Jason Sobel, PGA Tour, Sirius XM Radio, Action Network too, right? You're still Action Network, right?
Of course.
I'm just making sure. I got to keep tabs on these things. You people that have like 7 jobs, it's hard to keep up with you all. Jason Sobel, my good buddy, joins us tonight on the show. One of the things I was just marveling at before we get into the whole ups and downs of what we saw on Sunday and over the 4 days of this event at LA Country Club, just up the road from where I am, is we never talk about toughness, mental toughness. We think about it in terms of all the other sports. And when you say it in golf, people kind of chuckle. What are you talking about? They're guys walking around with golf clubs. I was just marveling yesterday at the mental toughness on all of these guys. Shot after shot after shot. Because that course on Saturday and Sunday was not the same course it was on Thursday and Friday. That course got noticeably tougher. Yeah, Tommy Fleetwood shot a 63 yesterday and Cam Smith had a decent round, but that course got noticeably tougher. And the ability of these guys, after hitting a bad shot, to be able to get up and then, flop it within a few feet out of some of this heavy rough and some of these lies in the bunker, I got to tip my hat, because I don't know why, even as somebody that plays golf, you don't really realize it until you sit down and look at it. These guys are the best in the world for a reason.
And so, look, every guy who plays in the U.S. Open, every guy who has a PGA Tour card, they're really good at hitting a golf ball. That's why they've gotten to that level. What separates a Wyndham Clark from a guy who's still struggling to keep his card, struggling to maintain top 10 finishes on the PGA Tour, the difference is the mental side of the game. So you mentioned I work for Sirius XM PGA Tour Radio. One of my colleagues, Drew Stoltz, grew up as sort of a mentor. He was older than Wyndham. He's probably about 6 or 7 years older, but they grew up in the Colorado, Denver area. And so he's known Wyndham his entire life. And he has, like I said, been kind of a mentor to him. And he told me probably about 5 or 6 months ago, he said, watch out for Wyndham. He said he started working with a sports psychologist and someone who's worked with some other big-time PGA Tour players. He said, this is the next step. This is what he needs because he's got all the shots. And for those who haven't followed his career and don't understand sort of the scouting report on Wyndham Clark, essentially what it's been is for the last 3, 4, 5 years, he's been a guy that is really good with 2 clubs in the bag. The biggest one and essentially the one you use on the greens. It's driver and putter. And everything in between, sort of the take on him, the scouting report on him was if his irons are just average, he's going to hit it long and straight and he's going to make enough putts that he can contend. This year, what we've seen is actually his iron game has been the best part of his game. He's been a really good iron player throughout the entire season. What we saw this weekend was, all right, he drives it well, we knew that. Iron game is much better, we knew that. Putting is really good. And now, all of a sudden, he's essentially, I believe, added to the arsenal that, oh, by the way, I'm going to get up and down from every lie that I've had all weekend. So when you do that, and you've got the mental toughness to it, there's not a whole lot that can beat you.
No, it's very true. But, look, not to make this about Rory, and we can get into Ricky, too, if we have enough time here, but I mean, and bless his heart, Andy North tried to make it sound like he didn't have any real opportunities at birdie yesterday because he couldn't hit it close enough to the hole. I'm like, Andy, what were you watching? He had enough opportunities to make putts. I mean, he had 4 that were inside of 18 feet. You got to make one, Rory. And even Rory rued the fact that his putter didn't get it done. He was so good tee to green. And look, he's going to win another major. I know it's been 9 years and people think it's, now at this point, will it ever happen again? But I mean, you got to make one putt in this round, and you're in a playoff or maybe even the champion. I mean, what did you make of what we saw from Rory, from where he was the week after the Masters to where he is now?
Okay, so a few things. First of all, I thought this was, even though a different scenario because he led it that one, I thought it was very similar to the final round at St. Andrews in the Open Championship last year, where essentially he hit all the greens. He was hitting it fine. He wasn't playing badly, but he wasn't capitalizing on any chances. And I felt like it was the same for Rory yesterday, where he just never stuck one. He said he had 4 inside of 18 feet. okay, but how many do you have inside of 5 feet that's like, all right, I stuck an iron shot, I stuck an approach shot, I can make that putt and move up the leaderboard. He did bad putts, and I know that we live in this black and white world right now where it's like, okay, well, he didn't make putts, so he putted bad. And no, you know what? He really putted pretty well. It's just when you're putting from 30 feet away and you lag it to 6 inches and it doesn't go in and it happens over and over and over again, you start looking at it and go, well, I guess you didn't putt well because you didn't make anything. I would probably maintain that the wedge game needs to tighten up a little bit better. 14 gave himself a chance with a wedge, third shot in, puts the wedge in the face of the bunker, gets a great ruling on it, which wasn't the wrong rule. It was the right ruling, but I don't know if it's like, I mean, a little guilt play here or what's going on. But Rory, all of a sudden, they're talking on TV like he can make this shot. I mean, he can hold us out for birdie, and he hits it 10, 12 feet past the hole and misses the comebacker and makes bogey. It's like, come on, man. At some point, you need to hit the ball near the hole so you can putt. You've got to understand. Look, we all play golf. I don't care if you're a recreational golfer, you're a double-digit handicap. You're out there playing, you're like, I can't make anything. Well, what do I need to do? I need to go hit it closer. And whether that means from 150 yards or that means from 5 yards off the green, at some point you go, I can't leave myself 10 feet because there's no way I'm making the 10-footer right now. All right, let me hit it closer. And Rory never did that.
No, he certainly did. And what did you make of Ricky Fowler, who put himself in position? You know, it's been a long struggle over the last 4 or 5 years for him to get back into a position like this. And there he was yesterday, and he obviously struggled. A small step backwards, but do you get the sense that Fowler is back now and here to stay, and we'll see him in contention again at some of these big events?
He was back before this one, and I've been saying it for a couple months now, Jason, that Ricky Fowler, I think maybe the people that aren't watching golf on a weekly basis, that aren't paying attention, are like, oh, that's a cute story. Ricky Fowler, he's playing good golf again. That's nice. It's like, no, Ricky Fowler's playing like a top 10, top 15 player in the world over the last 6 months. He's been that good. He had 7 top 20s in 8 starts coming into the U.S. Open this past week. I think that, look, at some point you just kind of like, you run out of gas a little bit. He shot 62 on Thursday. He's been stepping on the gas pedal for 3 days, been in the heat of contention for 3 days, and at some point it's just, you can't keep it going. I felt like, and I spoke with a handful of players after the round doing my duties for U.S. Open radio, and Ricky was more discouraged, despondent than any of them. I think he felt like this was his big chance. He never took advantage of it, never really looked comfortable out there from the first tee moving on. And so I do think that he'll be back in this situation. Like I said, he's playing some great golf right now. He's got the entire world rooting for him. He went out after being teary-eyed in his interview session and talking to everybody that wanted to talk to him. He went over and signed autographs for kids for an hour, which he's been doing, whether he shoots 78 or 62 for the last 15 years, which is really admirable. At some point, the golf gods repay Ricky Fowler with something big, and I think it's coming at some point in the not-too-distant future.
Last time here, I got about a minute left. What did you think of LA Country Club and sort of the way that course battled back over the last 2 days after these guys tore it up for the first 2?
I mentioned that, we all want this black and white, good or bad, yes or no answer in our society these days. Look, you can be a really good course at a really good club and not necessarily be a great U.S. Open course. Or you can be a great U.S. Open course, but the setup isn't quite right. I think they played it a little too conservatively, and by they, I mean the USGA and their setup over the first couple of days. It got much harder. The weather cooperated over the weekend. I thought it was a very good traditional U.S. Open track. They'll know. This is the first time that LACC hosted a U.S. Open. The next time they go back, which isn't for 16 years, but they'll have a better idea of how to set up this golf course the next time they do it. So I like, I'm telling you, for all the people that are like panning this golf course, like, oh, 62s, this place is terrible. Go to LACC North, go take a little spin around that golf course. The last thing you'd ever call it was terrible. It is an unbelievable piece of property, a really good course. You might not like how it played out on TV, and that's fine. But the course is not a bad course whatsoever.
That's Jason Sobel. Catch him on Sirius XM PGA Tour Radio. Also does a great job over on the Action Network. Thank you, my friend. I know you've been busy. I appreciate it.
You got it, bud.
During the U.S. Open. Stick around. When the NFL tries to throw you lemons and you're Patrick Mahomes, you make lemonade. I'll explain how next on The Cash In. How much? Let's see how much. The game's over now. Let's see how much tickets. How much tickets just jumped up. Here. Yeah, you can still get 120 each. Is the cheap? Oh no, they just jumped up 168. They were what? They went up $48 for the cheapest seats. How often do you get to see a team play for a championship?
All the salt is concentrated at the bottom, so it's very salty.
Oh really? I was wondering where the salt was because I didn't taste it. That's crazy. $168 each. Most expensive tickets. It's ridiculous. $400 each to sit center ice. It's crazy. Only out here. Good to be with you. I was just laughing during the break. I mean, it really is crazy to think that minor league hockey tickets on the secondhand market are going to be $160 a piece for Game 7 of the AHL Finals out here in Palm Springs, California. It's just silly. And it just goes to show you, man. What did Gordon Gekko used to say about greed? It's just, oh, man. Greed is good. That's what Gordon Gekko used to say. Greed is good. I don't know if I agree with that right now. When you see AHL Game 7 tickets, the cheapest seats right now are $168. They were $128 in like late in the first period of tonight's Game 6. And again, I know most people around America will not care about minor league hockey, but it just goes to show you that it doesn't matter what it is, man. If there's a demand, you can charge whatever you want. And I'm just looking at StubHub's website. A pair of tickets just sold for $158. Like, as it shows you the seats that have recently sold. So you've got tickets that literally just sold for $158 each. It's just crazy. This is a hockey town, though, man. I tell you, it didn't take long, but the desert where there's not a single hockey rink, there's no high school hockey, there's no college hockey, none of that exists here. They took a place that hockey was as foreign as cricket, and they decided to put the equivalent of AAA baseball, which is AAA hockey. And it has just been wildly successful. Just right place, right time, right team, right franchise, brand new arena, and there you go. I've covered sports for 28 years. Dead serious. This is not me being hyperbolic. 28 years I've spent talking about sports for a living. I'm 45 years old. I've never seen anything like the dynamic that has taken place out here in the desert in Southern California with a hockey team. Never seen anything like it. Minor league, major league, nothing. Nothing like it ever. All right, let me finish the show with something funny. So the NFL, I did not know this until today when I happened to stumble upon this story, thanks to CBSSports.com. NFL players are not allowed to appear in beer commercials. You can endorse anything. There's one product that NFL players are not allowed to endorse, and that is beer. The NFL has a rule in place that prohibits active players from directly endorsing beer, which means they're not allowed to do any beer commercials. Well, Patrick Mahomes and the folks at Coors Light found a way. Justin, producer, engineer Justin, did you see this? You have got to see this commercial. I'm going to play some of the audio of it. This is the beer commercial that Patrick Mahomes did with Coors Light beer. Instead of beer being spelled B-E-E-R, it's spelled B-E-A-R. And instead of appearing in the commercial with Coors Light beer, he is appearing in the commercial with Coors Light bear. You can't make it up.
Recently, we tapped star quarterback Patrick Mahomes to be in a promo for Coors Light beer. Turns out, we overlooked the fact that he can't actually promote Coors Light beer. That's why we're proud to introduce Coors Light Bear. Coors Light Bear is 0% adult beverage and 100% mammal. It's the perfect bear to hang out with after a long day. Few things are more refreshing on the golf course than Coors Light Bear. Not the same thing as beer. Coors Light Bear is pure mountain cold refreshment, which is something you would totally say about a bear. Coors Light Bear is perfect for the beach, but you've got to be careful because not everybody likes bear on the beach.
Coors Light Bear, the world's most refreshing bear. Here you go, my man.
Visit CoorsLightBear.com and get a Coors Light Bear of your own. All proceeds go to 15 and the Mahomes Foundation.
Let me tell you something. Whoever came up with that deserves a raise, a promotion, anything you could possibly imagine. They deserve it. That is absolutely, you got to see the video for it. Go to Patrick Mahomes' Twitter, which is Patrick Mahomes, easy to find. Go to Patrick Mahomes' Twitter. As a matter of fact, if you go to my Twitter at the back page, I will retweet it because that is one of the most ingenious things that I have seen in a very long time. And the commercial is just absolutely, it's just comical how they're able to just poke fun at the stupidity of the NFL. I mean, you literally have, whatever. NFL stadiums are filled with beer ads, beer everywhere, and players can't endorse beer. It's absolutely laughable. And Patrick Mahomes and the folks at Coors Light, those guys hit it out of the park, man. Out of the park. So I'm going to retweet it, and you guys can go and check it out on my Twitter at the back page. It's just great. Oh, it's funny. Here it is. We have it. They've even made like little outtakes from the commercials and stuff. It's just ingenious. There it is. Okay, so I'm retweeting it. It's been retweeted. Like I said, go and check out my Twitter feed at the back page, and you can check it out for yourself. But hats off to the folks at. There we go. That is ingenious. My computer is acting up tonight. I have to restart it. There you go. Now it's there on my Twitter feed. Everything is final in sports tonight. There was only one nighttime baseball game of note, and that game has gone final. Giants and the Padres was the only late night action. It was, like I said, it was a quiet night. Quiet night in sports. Thursday night, by the way, is the NBA draft. We'll have it covered. Tomorrow night, Kurt Heelan on the show. Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. We'll get the latest with him. There is talk about the Knicks making a deal. And if it's a deal, it's going to be something big. The Knicks aren't into doing anything small right now. I think they smell blood in the water in the East and certainly feel like they can be a contender. Why not them next year? So the Knicks are in the trade market. I want to talk to him about that. Find out what's going on with Damian Lillard as well. Marlins first baseman, I'll tell you, Luis Ariz just continues to amaze. He went into a slump that had him down to 378, and within like a few days, he went 5 for 5 tonight. Luis Ariz is hitting 400 again. The guy just puts the bat on the ball. And the Marlins now are a season best 11 games over 500 at 42-31. And again, Luis Ariz is hitting 400 on the year. I'll tell you, there aren't a lot of reasons to go to Miami Marlin games. Fans certainly haven't figured it out that this team's actually pretty good. If you need a reason, you got a guy. I mean, fans flocked to Yankee Stadium and traveled around baseball to watch Aaron Judge hit 62 home runs last year. Could you imagine somebody actually having a shot at hitting 400 this year? Luis Ariz might just do it. I mean, we're 70 games in. We're almost halfway through the season, and the guy is hitting 400. That's a healthy sample size. Come on, Miami. You don't get to go and see history all that often. You got a guy who's in your, playing in your park 81 times a year. He's good enough reason to go out and watch that team. Besides the fact they're actually pretty good. Nice job, Justin. We're back tomorrow on The Cash In. I'm Jason Page. Bye. Thanks, Justin. See you Wednesday. Bye. All right, that does it for us on the video side as well. Thanks for checking us out tonight. Appreciate you watching. Catch you back here on Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Kurt Heelan will be here. I don't know who else yet. We'll figure it out. Have yourselves a great night. I'm Jason Page. Bye.